Welcome to Universal Basic Calcia, guys. Amir, how are you?
Doing well. How's everybody else doing?
I don't know. I don't know about everybody else. I only know about myself, and I'm fine.
Well, how are you doing, Evan?
I'm great. Michael, how are you?
I'll be the contrarian and say I feel like shit. How are you, McKenna?
Yeah, I'm fantastic.
Now we're not sure for sure, but we know McKenna is about to leave on a journey, and we don't know whether she's going to have Wi-Fi access where she's going now. You're off to some type of cult, right?
This is true. I'm going to the mountains of Switzerland to go to what I can only describe as a Christian commune for intellectuals. And it is unlikely that I will have much communication with the outside world. So if something does happen to me, if they're bringing people in for ritual sacrifice, nobody will know about it for months, only if I don't.
So all the Christian intellectuals couldn't figure out the Wi-Fi password.
Right. I think the last Christian intellectual was Kierkegaard, and he's been dead some time. So I'm glad that you've identified some more.
Boy, I think the Christians would vehemently disagree with that, but I'm with you.
Yeah, this is like Francis Schaeffer, like the American evangelical movement, started these places. They're called L'Abri.
What are those words you just said? Who's Francis Schaeffer?
Okay, clearly you're not familiar with the history of American evangelism and all its sort of key players.
All right, tell me one key player. Francis Schaeffer. Tell me what he stands for.
He was kind of brought Christianity back into a bit more of like cultural opposition, like taking big stances in the name of the church. And he wanted people to go out and actually do apologetics in the real world. So these places, L'Abri, they're shelters for honest questions. So you go there and you ask questions about God. But they do say that love is the final apologetic. So you're supposed to go there. You're also supposed to be nice to people.
Now, but I know you well enough that methinks your first question that you would ask be, why would anybody believe in something for which there is no evidence?
Great question.
So how are they going to deal with that eminently reasonable question?
We'll see. I don't know.
But you'll get a free trip to Switzerland out of the deal. But no Wi-Fi access, that would be extra.
Yes. Well, again, we'll see. I'm being a little bit vague because I genuinely don't really know what I'm in for, but I'm excited.
Yeah, for the viewers and listeners, it's kind of up in the air whether McKenna's going to be with us these next few episodes. So hopefully she has a sufficient Wi-Fi connection to join us.
Yes. And on that note, I have something I want to say. So I a little bit fear that I'll be gone for so long and you'll find someone else to take my place who has much better predictive abilities and I'll be replaced. But the reason that you shouldn't do that is because I believe that our podcast's most regular listener and greatest fan is my mom. So happy Mother's Day to my mom, and thank you for listening. And she did make fun of me a lot because of the jump ball thing between me and Evan last time. She said that my father was rolling over in his grave, that I didn't understand the rules of basketball.
I mean, not the obscure rules of basketball, just the way the game starts by throwing the ball up in the air. But sure. So I don't think my mother regularly listens. She occasionally listens, but happy Mother's Day to her too. McKenna, there is no chance that we will replace you. It will not happen.
Thank you.
Michael, how long have we been friends?
12 years?
Where does loyalty rank among my qualities?
Very, very high.
Yeah, McKenna, it's not going to happen. And we will schedule around you. However, I will relentlessly make fun of you for spending your summer at a Christian cult in the Alps. Is it an Alpsy cult?
Yes.
Wow. Do they have a Jewish or atheist haven in the Alps?
They don't. See, that's why you got to go, is like no one else is offering this. So, yeah.
Well, at the end of today's episode, we'll identify some candidates that you can pray don't run so that we can win the Democrats can win the next election. So.
Last week we talked about long shots in the Democratic primary. This time we'll talk about the front runners. And we're going to follow the same format where each of us is going to nominate someone and then we'll tear them down either out of genuine belief or Amir out of spite. In my case, for you, just to tear down whatever you say. I think we're all going to start by talking about Kamala Harris. Just say, Mike, where's she at today in the market as we're taping this?
She is at 10 cents, Evan. Yep, 10 cents.
Is she a buy for you at 10 cents?
No way.
No way. Because?
No way. Because, traders have gotten it into their heads that somehow she's not damaged goods anymore, but I still look at her as damaged goods. I just don't. It would be a catastrophe if she was the general election nominee. I don't know. My intuition just strongly says 10 cents is too much. It could, spike in the near term, like, if she declares or whatever officially, but the idea that it's like right now, the intrinsic probability is 10 cents. She's the Democratic nominee. It's too high. Too high.
Before I speak, Amir, what do you think?
I completely agree. I don't think there's. Going back to last week, I think her actual odds are somewhere closer to 1 cent.
1 cent. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was going to try to come up with a Christian term of designation, but I don't know that there are any women in the church, so I don't think there is a title. What would you be referred to as? Sister Conlon, maybe?
Yeah.
Sister Conlon?
So I think her odds of securing the nomination are certainly sub 5%. So I think she's overpriced, but I don't know. I still kind of hold to the position we discussed a couple of times on the last episode that this is someone who we know is almost certainly is going to run. I would buy Harris for somewhere between 5 and 8 cents, thinking that I do feel there's going to be a point in the next 12 months where you could sell for 15.
I'm closer to McKenna than I am to you guys, Mike and Amir. Now, Mike, I wholeheartedly agree that it would be a disaster for the Democratic Party. So I hope she's not the nominee. And I always say that I think that politics in many ways would be better if there were a smoke-filled back room and the Democrats could decide to nominate. But that's not what's going to happen. There's going to be a primary. And I think there are two phases to this bet. It's whether the person runs. We discussed this last time. It's whether the person runs and you think there's an initial bump, and then whether you think you're going to hold and think that they're going to be the eventual nominee. So I spent a lot of time over the past couple of days looking at polling data on the Democratic primary. I mean, she's reached 50% in one poll, and she is consistently the leader in every primary poll. Does that mean that she's going to win? Absolutely not. Does that mean that she is going to run? I may have told you this one before. The Democratic strategist Hank Scheinkoff once said that politics are malaria. Once you have it in your blood, it's impossible to get out. I just don't really have a lot of historical examples of people saying, I'm the leader in national polls, but I'll sit this one out. So I think she's going to run. And then my first question to you, whereas Amir, I dismissed Ro Khanna and analogized his announcement to Bill de Blasio and said, I don't really think he gets a bump.
Mm-hmm.
What price is she on the day she announces her candidacy?
Oh, significantly higher.
Mike?
I disagree with that. I think that the market is already pricing in that she's going to announce. So if she announces, maybe it goes up 3 or 4 cents from where it is. I don't think much more than that.
McKenna?
I could see it getting up to 15. which is would be, I guess, a 50% return on whatever you put in now at 10. So that seems decent. I don't know. I would feel confident enough that I might buy.
I think she has to exceed Gavin Newsom in price. Now, that might, obviously, whatever she picks up, he loses to some extent, unless, the collective price is over $1. So I understand that that's not penny for penny. But, boy, I feel like if she were perceived as a certain runner, that she'd be neck and neck with him. I mean, she outpolls him in almost every poll. Now, once she announces, I mean, history is history, so who knows the way it's going to go. But Mike, I'm inclined to your view that her support would very quickly erode. But
Yeah,
I think there'd be that moment.
I think it matters, when she declares in relation to the other candidates, of course, right? So if she declares early on, if she's one of the first, second, third, or fourth people to declare out of probably 10, or however many are going to run, then you'll see a more significant price spike. But I think if she's in the middle or at the end of the pack of declarees, I don't see the price spiking much more. She does have name ID, institutional support. She polls well. All of these things, these quantitative factors matter, but qualitatively, I just think people are going to be screaming in their heads, no, not again.
So to that point, I tried to look pretty closely in the polling data at what issues currently seem to matter most to Democratic voters. Frustratingly, while many polls go through in detail perception of party performance, like which party do you trust on certain issues, and which issues do you think are most important, most of the polls that ask that question have not disaggregated the results by party. But the one poll I was able to find that looked at it, this is what it feels to me that the election is going to be about. I said it last week somewhat clumsily. For Republican voters, and this may drive people crazy, border security and immigration continue to be the number one issue. But that's not going to be the case in the Democratic primary. For both Democratic and Republican voters, affordability is an issue, is the principal issue. And then for Democratic voters, it's some mix of electability and concern with authoritarianism and democracy. I think the electability question is why you're right, Mike, that she's not going to, I think her support's going to erode, as it did, by the way, in 2020, right? Remember, she did great at the debate and had a very aggressive moment with Joe Biden at the first presidential debate when, she basically said she was the victim of a segregatory practice that Biden had supported in Congress. It was a great viral moment for her at the time. So I think it's very unlikely she wins. So Amir, you're 1 cent. I mean, she's got more than a 1 cent chance because she's gonna get a lot of money, but not 10% chance. But I think the arc feels to me like it's going to go from 10 up to 20 if she announces and then gradually erode. But you just never know. If she raises a couple $100 million and she runs well in whichever state comes first, there's no reason she couldn't win.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I mean, like you said, a lot of these, high level factors like name ID and exposure to the, voting base and all of that, I mean, they matter significantly. But I think we're going to see a drag out, knockdown kind of primary in which those early metrics are going to be quickly overshadowed. So that's why I think it does matter when she declares. If she's early, her price will spike more. If she's late, it's not going to spike much at all.
Can I ask another question to the group? I also think primary candidates think a lot about lanes. Is there anybody else in her lane?
I don't know what her lane is.
Well,
I mean,
I'll go
why
with
don't you define the
demographics and
lane?
say woman of color.
Okay.
Have we discussed a woman yet?
We did
Briefly,
last
Gretchen
week.
Whitmer in the event
Yeah.
that the Michigan primary comes first. Who's the leading candidate of color? Cory
guess.
Booker?
Well, probably. Yeah, no, AOC would be.
Oh,
Well, AOC and
AOC.
Harris are neck and neck, kind of, right?
Sure. Yeah, AOC. That's right.
Yeah. I wonder though if that lane is as defined as you think it might be, because she struggled, especially with black male voters, right? So if the idea is that, she's going to carry black people's votes, I don't know. I mean, maybe because Trump has been such a disaster, black male voters will, again, shift back to Kamala if she's the nominee. But her performance, relative to what one might expect from a candidate of color among black males, was not as good as it could have been, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure we'll get to this with AOC also, but it seems like obviously there is some identity politics at play, but it has just been sort of unpopular to name that as the case, right? And with the exception of the moment you discussed from the 2020 primaries, I thought that was definitely a successful moment for Harris. But otherwise, I mean, I don't think there are a lot of like people voting in the Democratic primary that would state the race of the candidate as an important factor for them. But I think it is a factor. I just don't think it's going to be helpful to anyone to name that as a factor, and so I don't think she will.
I'm going to say one more thing. This is probably more a defense of Kamala as a candidate than it is about her betting proposition. I thought she ran a fine campaign. I thought she was put in a very unusual, a historically unique position other than, Bobby Kennedy getting assassinated, but which is even way earlier in the 68 primary than it was with Harris. So it's a very strange position. I think the most damaging ad that was run against her was the paying for transgender surgery, which was as unsupported as an ad has ever been in American history. I thought her performance at the debate was close to tour de force. I mean, I don't think any rational person could have looked at that and not thought that she was eminently more intelligent and qualified than the opposition. I mean, I didn't think she was bad. She lost, and there's a stink of losing that people can't get past. But I don't know. I didn't think she ran a bad campaign, especially given the unusual position that she was put in.
No, I'm with you. I mean, she presented as an intelligent and competent candidate, but I think the same reason why she lost is the same reason why she lost, black male voters. She just didn't strike me as somebody to whom people felt they could relate. That relatability factor is going to be huge. We live in post-Trump era where intelligence and competency are not high up on the list for people who are running for office, right? I mean, really, I think what people are looking for is somebody who's a fighter, who's relatable, who will center working class issues in a way that working class people want them centered, not in the way that establishment liberals think they ought to be centered. So I think, that's kind of playing into it.
Well, let's use that as a segue to talking about your person, AOC. So as you were saying that, I was like, that is AOC. So what's your vibe on whether she's likely to run and the viability of her campaign?
All right. So I'll just start with the little bio for people who may be unfamiliar somehow at this late stage. She's a Democratic Congresswoman from New York's 14th District, representing parts of the Bronx and Queens. She famously was a bartender before entering politics, so she does have that working class kind of grit about her. She has a bachelor's degree from Boston University, not precisely the most elite university, but certainly respectable.
BU is ranked in the U.S. News and World Report rankings, which I deplore, and I'm working on an article about how ruinous they are. But BU is ranked approximately 20th. It's
All right.
they've better than you're giving it credit for.
Well, it's solid. I'm not trying to cast aspersions
I'm
on
just
you.
defending
but-
it. Yeah, I felt
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
aspersions. I felt
No, it's
aspersions
okay.
were cast.
No aspersions. I
You're
think, like
you're
I said
spurred.
last, you're spurred. You're spurred. I think last time I said educational pedigree doesn't matter all that much this election cycle anyway. But anyway, I was saying she worked for Senator Ted Kennedy. Then she had this historic defeat of Joe Crowley in the 2018 primary for her district. And she's young. She's a woman of color of Puerto Rican descent, represents the party's young progressive wing, and she is the working class firebrand, out of the gate this time around if she does declare. And I think she will declare. I've thought through kind of the bull and the bear case for her, but yeah, I'll just leave it there and see what others have to say
Well,
at this
go
point.
ahead. Go bull, go bear.
Go bull, go bulls. Okay, so bull case is that she's most
If people
clearly
knew you better, they would know how improbable it is that you're ever shouting "Go Bulls." But whatever. Yeah,
no idea. I
Yeah.
know that some people throw a ball around.
you know
and
about as
people
much about
cheer.
basketball as McKenna does.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, probably less.
Wow.
But she matches the mood of the Democratic Party right now in the sense that I think she can channel outrage. I think people are very concerned about issues like cost of living and affordability, of course. So she's gone around famously with Bernie Sanders, drawing huge crowds on her Fighting Oligarchy tour. The one in Los Angeles drew like 36,000 people. Pew found that 81% of Democrats say that it's important for Democratic officials to push hard against Trump policies. You're not going to obviously have any problem there. She's going to try to push hard. People want somebody who's going to fight for working class people. So if she can get up there and do combat with clarity and make sure that she drives the economic populist message home without appearing like a Looney Tune in the process, which is, of course, what I have reservations about, then she could perform well. The bear case is that Democratic primary voters want a fighter, but they also want someone who can win. So Third Way is a famous polling organization. They found that 62% of Democratic primary voters prefer somebody who can win in a general election. And I think, on the right, she's obviously been cast as like, I don't know, this sort of like demonic wild eye figure, which is not true, of course. But even on the left, people sort of have an impression that she's a little bit out there in terms of electability in the general election. The same organization, Third Way, found that, overhauling ICE and building on the gains of Obamacare, those things tend to pull well with voters, not the Green New Deal, which she's been one of the foremost advocates for, and also not for abolishing ICE. It's the same thing that we got with abolish the police, right? I mean, it's just the wrong verb. You can't push things in that harsh language. So she could definitely be a top tier candidate, but she could also be cast as too coastal, too risky, and too far left.
I think the biggest factor in whether she's going to run is whether or not she sees a lane to beating Chuck Schumer. And Schumer's term expires in 2028. She's very, very, if she doesn't run for president, she's going to run for the Senate. I think she'd win.
Would she win the New York State Senate race? Yeah, I think she could win.
I think she'd win the primary.
Oh, the primary. Yeah.
And then would she win the Senate race? I think so.
Right.
That's going to be very tempting. Senate seats are kind of like tenured professorships. Their jobs for life for the most part. They pay a little bit better.
Yeah.
And
what do you think?
What is she trading at?
She's at 10 cents. She just to give you an idea of the price action history. So when the market opened in late 2024, she was at 5 cents. And then she hit a peak at 15 cents in August of 2025. And then ever since then, she's been like plus or minus 10 cents. Yes.
All right, I'll tell you what I think, but I want to hear from Amir and McKenna first. Amir?
I'm very curious as to how she's gonna change her public image approach. In the past, like she's been given freebies at the Munich Security Conference and other platforms, and she's just really failed, not done a good job of being able to give her thesis and in a very concise way. And when she's confronted with tough questions, such as like, why she didn't endorse her former chief of staff during her campaign, Saikat Chakrabarti, because of Israel, obviously that was the answer, but she just couldn't answer it straightforward. And I think a lot of other runners are going to confront her with very tough questions that she might not be able to answer on a national stage.
Which Israel issue going to cut in the Democratic primary?
I'm curious
So
about
tough
that.
to
I think
tell.
it's going to be polarizing slightly because it is currently.
I haven't seen any polling data on that. I mean, I would matter a lot how you framed the issue. McKenna, what's your gut on AOC?
Well, so the DSA is not going to support her because they think she's been too soft on Israel, which I think
Right.
is crazy. And I
Not critical enough of Israel.
yes.
Hmm.
And
I don't know.
I
Has
think
anyone in American history won the presidency without the support of the Democratic Socialists of America? I mean, I don't know.
yeah,
She should just
okay.
pack it up.
I know
Like,
that seems kind of silly. It's
I
not as if
mean, if you don't have Eugene V. Debs' endorsement, how do you win? And Debs has been dead for
Oh.
50 years.
Can we get Debs back? Can we put him up on the
I
stage?
think Debs ran twice after he died.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So you got dibs on Debs. Okay. All right. So McKenna, you've flagged the essential socialist endorsement. Now let's talk about the Swiss Alps cloistered Catholics endorsement.
yeah. I'll see what their endorsement is going to be. But I just mentioned that because it seems like if that was going to be her lane, if her career and reputation with the squad and the sort of far left contingent was going to be her lane, I don't know that that's going to be super successful. I agree with Amir that when pressed on those things, I don't think she's done terribly, but I certainly don't think she's done particularly admirably. I will say, we'll talk about this maybe also with Gavin Newsom, but especially with the rise of Mamdani, I think we're seeing a little bit of resurgence for the desire of politicians that are sexy. So she has that going for
Is
her.
Mamdani sexy? Oh, Amir, you're
Yeah.
attracted
Amir,
to
that was
Mamdani.
like,
Wow,
that
that
was,
was the
that
big
was a
reveal
little
of the
too
podcast.
aggressive of a yes.
Oh,
Not an aggressive yes. It's
that
just
was very aggressive.
He's sexy.
What?
He strikes me as a serious socialist, whereas most socialists I've seen these days are decidedly unserious. So, yeah.
Sorry. We got sidetracked on sexy candidates.
Yeah.
So Mamdani is the sexy candidate.
Yes, I think I got a little lost in what I was saying. She's
It's my fault.
the point is she's similarly going to have trouble finding a lane with a contingent of people that will back her in that lane.
Well, I would look at historical analogs. There's one counterexample, which is a very, very powerful and important counterexample. But, if Zohran Mamdani declared for the presidency, a Democratic Socialist mayor of New York City would have precisely zero chance of winning the nomination and being elected.
He's constitutionally ineligible too, right?
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's not technically a naturalized citizen born in the United States.
Okay, well, that's
He's
not the main point of
naturalized,
this. That was sort of Bill de Blasio's lane. I mean, mayoral candidates don't have a good track record. Okay, AOC would be running from the House, which, as I pointed out last time, is a very, very difficult pathway. Last taken by, I'll quiz you and see if you remember from last time. Who's the last person to do it?
I don't know.
James Garfield, 1880. It's tough.
You're old enough to remember.
Oh, thank you. God, that would make me 146.
You look good for your age, yeah.
Thank you. So she, if you just describe Democratic Socialist running from the House, I would laugh, right? The only counterexample is Bernie Sanders, who ran an incredibly effective campaign, right? And Bernie Sanders really should have been the Democratic nominee in 2016. I voted for him. could she be Bernie Sanders? But there were material differences there. Bernie Sanders ran from the Senate as an independent, took no money. I just don't see it.
Bernie doesn't lean into the identitarian politics the way
Not at
AOC does.
all.
I mean, he's what I always like to say, he's left but not woke, and he's sincerely left and sincerely not woke, right? He just focuses on bread and butter issues. AOC, when she gets up on the stage, is going to have to definitely temper that identitarian impulse, because that is not what Democrats are looking for this time around. I mean, they don't want just sort of posturing support for, various marginalized groups. They want money in their pockets, and gas in their tanks and food in their fridge, and
Well,
the
she'll speak
identitarian
the
thing's not
language of
gonna work.
affordability. She'll speak the language of affordability. I just don't know if she'll only speak the language of affordability, right? Whether the question to speak the language of identity politics. I mean, you're right about Bernie. Bernie's the best. I mean, he's really kind of an anti-woke liberal, but he's walked the walk for 40 years. I actually think Bernie would do extremely well right now were he not. I'm thinking he probably doesn't have a third presidential campaign in him at 83 or whatever.
He
Yeah,
took
but he's run a
46
very,
years old.
very effective campaign over the past couple of
Oh,
months.
I'm as old as Bernie Sanders. Was that joke? Just in case people didn't hear it. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. I'm sorry, Amir. I'm a little hard of hearing in this year, so I didn't hear what you said.
No, his tour, the fight against the oligarchy, has been very successful. I mean, like, it's been drawing a lot of attention.
Oh yeah, I mean he's terrific, but he's like you give Pete Buttigieg a lot of credit for this. I mean, Pete Buttigieg is on Fox News all the time. I mean, he really makes efforts to talk across difference, which I think is really to his credit. I don't know. I see very little chance of AOC being the Democratic nominee. I see some chance of her running, but in your bull bear, I'm like, I just think she's going to be real tempted to run for a Senate seat, and then she has a pathway to running for the presidency after a record of some legislative accomplishment, which she really has none to this point.
Right.
All right. I don't feel any strong buys here on AOC. Since we talked about Israel, let's use that to talk about Josh Shapiro. Amir, what do you think about him? Sorry.
I was going to steal my person. I think he's, of the people that we've spoken about so far, this maybe the strongest candidate. He's the current governor of Pennsylvania, and he has been since 2023. He was also the former attorney general of Pennsylvania. He's somewhat of a moderate, and I use that sparingly just because on certain issues he's been very hardcore, and on others not so much. He was considered to be, a popular pick for Kamala Harris's vice president's pick in 2024. And I will bring up that really scared people in the GOP and Republican side back in 2024. He was seen as a very strong candidate, and actually one of the leading theories, maybe a conspiracy theory, of why he wasn't selected was probably because he would have outshined Kamala Harris during that entire campaign. And Pennsylvania is a huge battleground state in the upcoming election, and it was back in 2024 as well. He's pretty strong communicator, much like Bernie. He does go on Fox, CNN, all the different talk shows, and he does have this aura of competency and not a lot of scandals around him. So I think he is a decent chance, actually, of both, announcing and then also winning the primary. But I will say, while we were talking about the topic of Israel when it came to AOC, so Pew actually had done research around this, and it showed that 20% of Democrats actually now are favorable towards the Israeli government. And he's going to have an issue with that. So does that change my position?
Well, the polling data, the disparity is massive. So
right.
In a blanket, do you support Israel or not? About 70% of Republicans have a favorable view of Israel or express support for Israel, which is about twice the rate expressed by Democrats. Now, when I was saying before, I haven't seen, so pollsters will talk about there's favorable and unfavorable, but there's also salience. Salience is how important an issue is to voters. By the way, some things that people think are very meaningful to them aren't really meaningful. They just think it's like when you ask somebody, oh, what are you going to do in the case of a fire? I'm going to run in and save the cat. And then when confronted with the fire, they just let the cat die. So we don't really know what's important to voters, but we know what voters say is important to them. We don't have a good sense of the salience of Israel in the election. And, if there's no further conflict between now and end of 2027, beginning of 2028, it's unlikely to be a highly salient issue. But it doesn't feel to me in a Democratic primary like being the Israel guy is going to be the main thing, is going to be a helpful fact. So I don't think he would run on that. He would run, as you said, as a competent manager, right?
I was thinking like, oh, well, then somebody could kind of blitzkrieg him about the Israel topic, saying, oh, look at what you did. You were signing bombs. Like there was actually pictures signing bombs that were getting shipped off to Israel. But now that I think about that argument too, I don't think there's anybody on the Democratic stage that would actually make that argument and try to jeopardize their own position in favor of some votes.
I did want to say, Shapiro's trading right now at 4.6 cents. Yes, but Amir's right. I mean, his credentials as a swing state governor, being sort of safe, engaged, not too far to one side or the other, really helped his price out all the way through, halfway through last year. He was like at 13 cents, and now he's down to 4.6. So I don't know exactly what's driving that price action, but just kind of a plug for Shapiro. I mean, people really thought initially, and for a protracted period, that he was going to be a strong contender.
He has his favorable, unfavorable split in the most recent echelon poll, which is a decent one, is 29-22. So that's a lot of people that don't have a view. So Kamala Harris is a 47-49 split. Everybody has a view. She's a known commodity. Very unfavorables are very, very sticky. So when you're unknown, you then, the first thing that happens in a race, and in 2027, 2028, hundreds of millions of dollars will be spent to define candidates. So, you immediately try to define Josh Shapiro as, I guess if I were running in the Democratic race, I might throw some negative ads up around Israel.
Right.
But, certainly if you're running against somebody who had any connection to Epstein or something like that, that's the first thing you do. So once you drive up unfavorables, it's very hard to bring them down. So he's not as well a defined candidate as almost everyone that we've spoken about. AOC is 38-40, leaning negative. Mayor Pete, by the way, 37-31 favorable. As we discussed last time, the pathway, there is a pretty well-defined pathway from a governorship to the presidency. So he has a lane. It feels like it's about the right price. Like 13 cents, he feels really high to me. But you could see it. McKenna, you like Shapiro?
Yeah, I certainly think, I guess it's just in part because it's so early, but my intuition on a lot of the people that we've discussed, long shots or front runners, is that the price feels too high because it just seems like it's still low information. Shapiro seems correctly priced to me, if not even a little low. I think 4.6 seems right, or at least in the ballpark.
I'm detecting in our group something I hadn't seen before. I think I know what the bias is. I see a pro-buy bias. Like you're all inclined to say it's a little low. But I think it comes from a social dynamic of not wanting to say, oh, like once somebody speaks about somebody, you feel like they're attached to them. But, whatever. Amir, you don't have any connection. It's not like Josh Shapiro is you're related to him or you worked for him or anything like that. I don't know.
Maybe. I would be, I'm in the same ballpark as McKenna. I would be like very marginal buy at 4.6 cents.
But you notice
seem to be there. Yeah, go ahead, Amir.
Sorry to cut you off, Mike, but you notice how, like, with AOC and everybody else that we've talked about, we've been able to identify, I think, like, actual issues that would come up in their campaigns. With Shapiro, I don't think anything exists other than Israel. But like I said, I don't know if another contender would actually attack him on that issue, because that might actually hurt them.
It's a very important
Good point.
There really is no coherent rationale for liberalism in America in 2026. I mean, the ethos of the Democratic Party is effectively not Trump, not authoritarianism, and I'm down with that agenda, but that's different than articulating an affirmative view. So at least in Mamdani's case, Mamdani articulated an affirmative vision of the good, which is a much more affordable New York. Whether that's achievable or not, I don't know. I mean, I don't see anybody here that's advanced a major policy proposal, but Amir, what you said is exactly the way strategists think about this. Right. So it's much easier to tag somebody with an unfavorable than to boost favorables, right? And so the fear, you get a lot of risk aversion. Oh, if I put a policy proposal out there, see healthcare in 2008, then everybody's going to pick apart my plan. Oh, you're in favor of single payer. Oh, right. So you're a tax and spend liberal. And then you're down to, I mean, I can't even remember. I guess Andrew Yang is an example of somebody who had an affirmative idea, that kept him in the race for a couple of months. Bernie Sanders always gets marks for this, for taking money out of politics. I mean, he's the best. I mean, he's just got perfectly coherent message that he's lived up to his whole career. I don't know that, is there anybody on this list that, Mike said AOC has articulated the Green New Deal, which we'd prefer that she not run on, even if we might all agree with many elements of it. But I agree with you, the defund the police and abolish ICE are so stupid. They're so stupid. Yeah, it's tough. I don't see any rationale for Josh Shapiro's candidacy. But will he get some money? Probably. Will he declare? Probably. Mike, I think you said earlier, the sequence matters a lot here. I think if Kamala Harris declares early, it will thin out the field, though it will not thin out Josh Shapiro, because Josh Shapiro probably remembers that Kamala Harris didn't select him to be her vice presidential nominee in 24.
I think safety and security is going to be the key. And if you can portray yourself as not someone who's going to warmonger, someone who's just going to have a quiet 4 years, I think you'll be able to win over Americans, because it's been such a traumatic past 2 years thus far that people are just looking for some sort of stability and peace and quiet.
McKenna, you were going to talk to us about Jon Ossoff.
Yes. I'll give away the main point of this, which is that I don't think he's going to run. And I know that there's some evidence against that, but I don't think he's going to run. So I think he's overpriced at 8 cents. But to give the brief background, okay, this is a one-term senator from Georgia who ran as a representative in Georgia 6th in 2017 in this somewhat famous campaign where he gave someone who should have had an easy time getting reelected a real run for her money. He drew out a lot of Democrats in Georgia in 2017 at the time, like sort of massive turnout for him, and it ended up being really close. So even though he didn't win, he sort of got a lot of traction and notice in the Democratic Party for doing that before the big blue wave in Georgia in 2020, which is when he won his seat in the Senate. And so he is seeking re-election in the Senate. He has stated as recently as 2 weeks ago that he has zero interest in a presidential run. And sometimes people say that and they don't mean it, but he's not making any moves, not touring in the primary states. So I'm taking him at his word there. Also, on top of the fact that, he's young, and before his 2 attempts at election, he was a documentary filmmaker. I think he's just going to want some more political experience. If he were to dream of a presidential run, I do not think it would be now.
I agree with you on this. First of all, John Ossoff is not certain to win his Senate reelection campaign, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think the fair odds on that would be 60-40 or something like that.
I agree.
And if he loses, he's not going to Beto O'Rourke and then, turn from running a failed Senate campaign to immediately launching a presidential campaign. And if he wins, I mean, he'd have to start basically right away. So you have to feel that like relentless ambition from someone. I don't know. I haven't sensed that. It doesn't mean it's not there. Like Barack Obama had that relentless ambition. I mean, you could see it. A state Senate seat wasn't going to be enough for him, which is good for history that happened. Yeah, I think he's a no at 92 cents. Now, I wouldn't bet it because I don't really want to hold that to make 8 cents over 2 years. And it's so much more appealing to think about long shot candidates that are severely underpriced. Because if Mike and I are right about Gallego and we've got shares at 0.8 cents and he does announce and he does well in one of the early primaries and we're holding something worth 8 cents, then we've made a 10x return on our investment. It's a lot more interesting than getting a likely 7% return and likely and a concern of having to live through the possibility that he does announce and the no price declines and then you have to hold it through that to the end. He doesn't seem likely to run to me. He seems overpriced.
I have
Yep.
a question for you, McKenna. Maybe you have some thoughts on this. So when I was looking at the price data for all the people we're discussing today, Ossoff is the only one who doesn't start with the market, right? So they add him on in May of 2025, and he starts at 1 or 2 cents. But I mean, if you draw a line of best fit, it's just all the way up. Like there are no peaks and troughs. It's just generally moving upwards. Do you have any explanation for why, it just seems to be consistently increasing in price?
I
And I
think
agree with you and Evan that he's not going to run likely, but yeah, go ahead.
I would guess there are some things that he has done that people take as an indication that he might run for president, but in fact, I think they're just indications that he is seeking reelection, right? Like, he was a great fundraiser in both of his campaigns, and on a lot of issues has stayed relatively moderate. I mean, he had a very closely aligned voting record with Biden, but not entirely. He was one of 12 Democrats to support the Laken Riley immigration bill. And he's just a couple of other positions, Israel being one of them, on which he was a little bit more moderate. He voted against the resolutions that Sanders submitted to withhold funding from Israel. And so I think some people took a few of his political moves, along with his increased recognition and coverage, as a possible intent to run, and I think they're just things that he's doing for his long-term political career.
Makes sense.
Amir, do you want to weigh in on the senator from Georgia?
I would say that if he did decide to run it, he might actually have a better chance than Shapiro, just because he has that youth factor to him. More, and considering the fact that he's not going to be lumped into the leftist category that AOC would be, or the quiet kind of do nothing category that Shapiro might be lumped into. He might be one of the most active figures from the Democratic side.
As you all know, I'm a big fan of, and I'm long on Pete Buttigieg, and I think I've got evidence on my side. So Pete Buttigieg is a Harvard graduate and former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, ran a very effective campaign for the presidency, dropped out of the Democratic primary after Joe Biden prevailed in the South Carolina primary, and the Democrats lined up behind him, and Pete Buttigieg got a cabinet position as Secretary of Commerce. Buttigieg has data on his side that I'm sure he's underpriced, which is different than saying I'm sure he's going to win. But Buttigieg comes in pretty consistently in the top 3, or consistently in the top 3 in every primary. You have a non-zero chance that Michigan is one of, if not the first state in the primary, and Buttigieg and his husband moved to Michigan. So he would do very well there, particularly if Gretchen Whitmer didn't run. He's done an enormous amount of things that, A, make me think he's very likely to run for the presidency, and run an effective campaign. As I mentioned before, chief among these is engaging with Republicans through Fox News, which I think is a great sign of electability. I also happen to just think he's incredibly smart, decent guy, and a very effective campaigner. Even he ran very well in the Iowa caucuses and in the New Hampshire primary. So if those happen to be the first 2 states, I think it's reasonable to say that Buttigieg would be the favorite. The way this game is played, it's you have to run well early, and then people run out of money and they drop out. So the fields are winnowed rather than somebody winning. It's just they outlast everybody who loses. I saw in one of the comments, I think on YouTube, that somebody, or it's a clip, and somebody snidely said, well, America's not going to elect a gay man. The Democratic Party might. That is not going to be an obstacle for him in the Democratic primary at all. And I have to say, I really don't think it's going to be, he might lose, but I don't think it's going to be because of that. And I'm going to say, again, how much I think Democratic voters will perceive the need to run a veteran, someone with a record of military service. That's Buttigieg, Ruben Gallego, or Mark Kelly. I think it would be an enormous asset. So am I certain he's going to win? No, but I've got a lot of shares at 5 cents that I hope I'm going to be holding after he wins the New Hampshire or Michigan primary, and then I have to make a decision about whether to hold on at 20 cents. He's the no-brainer best bet in the field, with Gallego, who feels like the best value in the field, or maybe Buttigieg is the best value and Gallego is the best bet. So tell me why I'm wrong.
You're not. I mean, I think it's a great bet. I think right now he's at 4.7 cents. I started buying Buttigieg at 3 cents in bewilderment because I thought that was way too low, and it's risen somewhat. You're right. The gay thing is not an obstacle in the Democratic primary. I think you probably underestimated salience in the general election. I'm not sure how much you had to say about that, but especially as Democrats are trying to get back men of color in particular, coming from more culturally conservative backgrounds in general. I don't know that they're going to want to see 2 men on the stage together.
But it wouldn't. Nobody would run an ad on that, would they?
No, I don't think they would run an ad on it. Certainly not directly. They might, around the margins, try to suggest that there's something inconsistent with traditional values going on here.
But they
But I
just
don't
show
think
a
they're
lot
gonna-
of images with him with Chase is his husband, right?
Chase, yeah, I think so.
In the way that Trump invoked the specter of George Soros to suggest that there was the elders of Zion were behind Hillary's candidacy. But I don't know. I mean, there might be individually tailored ads that suggest that. I don't know.
When I was researching for this, I was reminded that in Ossoff's Senate race in 2020, Perdue ran that ad where they had digitally altered his nose to be larger, and so I'm thinking of other offensive stereotypes that would be the digitally altered Pete Buttigieg.
I mean, we are AI ads are terrifying, and there's really been very minimal efforts to regulate them.
Can you effectively
It's
regulate
funny.
them?
I pitched an article to Politico about this. So unclear. It's untested. You could require that an ad say that it was created with AI in the same way you could say that foods have been genetically modified or whatever. But I don't think you could ban them. But I mean, I do think fakes need to be labeled. That doesn't seem like a speech issue to me.
Mike, a quick question about Pete Buttigieg. Doesn't he kind of fall into that trap that you were talking about the elite framing, and how, he was obviously a Harvard grad and then a consultant afterwards, and how you said Americans will, maybe even the Democrats will look for more of a working class or a person who can speak to the working class.
He does. He seems like he's better, and at least in the general election way of in like the previous cycle, which was that, we can have an institutional Democrat who checks off some minority checkbox and, we can just let them take over the reins of the empire. Sorry for my socialist framing here. But yeah, it's a weakness. It's a weakness. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think I think the lanes thing is still a good framing here. I think it's a strength in terms of I think his pedigree, especially for what Democrats are actually looking for, is really strong. I mean, it's not just his history in politics and education, but yes, also military service. And I mean, someone's going to correct me on this, but like Rhodes and MacArthur and
I think it's Rhodes, yeah.
yeah.
Evan's right. He has that relentless ambition. Like that for sure Buttigieg has, and it's palpable. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can see this as a good opposition to Harris or Newsom, is just someone who, in spite of the absolutely shocking quality of being homosexual, is is just like really good in these establishment ways. And for a lot of people that are voting, like I do think he's electable. I think he's classic. I think he's scandal free. I think that this could be a strength instead of a weakness.
I was going to say no gay is scandal free, but never mind. Sorry.
So the UBK gang is unified, short on Newsom. We all think Newsom is overpriced. Long on Buttigieg. Long on Gallego. Split, but maybe it's a buy and sell on Harris after she announces, which I think our consensus is that she probably will find irresistible. Then splits on mild buys on Shapiro, no on Ossoff, no on AOC. All right, there you have your pathway to making a fortune out of politics, or you could just steal the presidency and sell everything.
Yeah.
That's another way to make a fortune off of politics.
Right. It's true.
A happy Mother's Day to Mrs. Russellov, who's raised the most wonderful young man, Mrs. Conlon, the most extraordinary daughter, Mrs. Horahan. May she
rest in peace.
May she rest in peace. But raised an extraordinary son. Maybe you get most of the credit on that one. And my mom, Sherry Mandery, wherever she's listening, thank you for everything. We'll be back next time to talk about the Scylla and Charybdis of who's likely to be the Republican nominee, J.D. Vance or little Marco Rubio. Until then,
little Tucker Carlson. Yes, until
Carlson.
Tucker Carlson.
Universal Basic Cauchy Guys was created by Evan Mandery and Michael Horahan and is hosted by Evan, Mike, McKenna Conlon, and our producer, Amir Rasulov. Our theme song is Passing Trains by Nathan Eklund. You can follow us on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram at UBKGuys. Our email is admin@ubkguys.com. The content on Universal Basic Cauchy Guys is for informational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute trading, financial, or investment advice. Nothing discussed on this show should be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell contracts on any prediction market. Trading on prediction markets involves real financial risk, and you could lose money. Always do your own research and consider your own financial situation before trading. The hosts may and often do hold positions in markets discussed on the show. Views expressed by guests are their own and do not reflect the positions of the show or its hosts. If you or someone you know is struggling with problem gambling, free and confidential help is available 24/7 through the National Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-522-4700 or visit ncpgambling.org.